Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're not just diving deep, we're essentially time traveling, journeying through Earth's colossal history.
It's quite a trip we have planned.
Absolutely. We're talking 4.54 billion years of, well, dramatic planetary transformation, the fiery crucible of its birth, the incredible evolution of life, and the slow, relentless dance of continents. Our mission today is really to guide you through this mind-boggling timeline from its molten beginnings right up to, well, now. We want to extract the most crucial chapters and hopefully unearth some truly surprising facts along the way.
Yeah, definitely some surprises in there.
Think of it as your ultimate shortcut to understanding the epic saga of our home planet.
And to navigate such an immense stretch of time,
Mm-hmm.
we'll be using the geologic timescale. You really have to. Consider it our finely tuned roadmap.
Okay.
Scientists have meticulously divided Earth history into a hierarchy of eons, eras, periods, epochs, and even smaller ages. This structure isn't just, about naming things. It's how we piece together when major geological events unfolded, how life emerged and diversified, and the profound ways the planet itself transformed over those billions of years. It gives us context.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start at the absolute earliest and perhaps most violent chapter, the Hadean Eon.
The very beginning.
This period stretches from Earth's formation about 4.6 billion years ago up until 4 billion years ago. And if you know your Greek mythology, you know the Hadean is perfectly named.
Oh, absolutely.
It was truly a hellish underworld with conditions so extreme that it's hard to even, wrap your head around.
It really is. Imagine this. Earth formed through the relentless accretion of dust and planetesimals, right?
Mm-hmm.
A process so energetic, it released immense heat, leaving the young planet covered in a globe-spanning ocean of molten magma. Just rock soup.
Wow, a magma ocean.
Yeah. Then, around 4.5 billion years ago, a colossal impact, probably with a Mars-sized body scientists call Thea.
Right, the moon-forming impact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It ripped off enough material to form our moon. While the planet's metallic core was differentiating, sinking inwards, lighter silicate material gradually began to cool.
Okay.
This allowed a primitive crust to form by about 4.4 billion years ago. And we know this from the incredible story told by the oldest mineral grains ever found, tiny zircon crystals unearthed in Western Australia.
Those little time capsules?
Precisely. But even with a crust, peace was a long way off. From about 4.1 to 3.8 billion years ago, you get the late heavy bombardment.
Sounds ominous.
It was. The surface was relentlessly pummeled with asteroids, repeatedly remelting the crust in places. This created a truly toxic, steam-rich atmosphere, constantly outgassing volcanic fumes. Awful stuff.
So it's just constant chaos.
Pretty much. Only towards the very end of the Hadean did the crust stabilize enough for the first oceans to condense, as rain finally cooled the searing surface.
What utterly blows my mind, though, is the whisper of early life. Even in that environment, how could anything possibly survive? And what makes it so incredibly challenging for scientists to confirm those earliest traces?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it really highlights the potential resilience of life.
Yeah.
Well, we have no confirmed fossils from the Hadean.
Right, nothing definite.
Nothing definite. But the carbon isotope ratios in some of those 4.1 billion-year-old zircons do hint at the possible early emergence of life.
A chemical fingerprint, almost?
Kinda, yeah. Perhaps around hydrothermal vents deep in those first newly formed oceans, shielded from the surface chaos. That's a leading idea.
Okay, vents make sense. Sheltered.
But the challenge, as you suggested, is the geological record itself. The planet was so active, so brutal, that very, very few rocks from that eon have survived the constant remelting and geological upheaval.
So the evidence just got destroyed.
Largely, yes. Imagine trying to read a book where 99% of the pages have been burnt and scattered. That's essentially what geologists face with the Hadean.
Right, so the evidence is elusive. But as we transition into the Archean, that's from 4.0 to 2.5 billion years ago, the Earth begins to stabilize a bit more. Does that mean the evidence for life gets clearer?
Exactly. The Archean is where we start to see a more robust and widespread rock record. Finally, something more solid to work with.
Okay.
Geologically, the Earth's mantle was still hotter than today, driving very vigorous plate tectonics. Much faster movement than now.
More activity.
Yeah. This led to the formation and merging of small protocontinents, or cratons. The Acasta gneiss in Canada, at 4.03 billion years old, is one of the oldest known rocks, a testament to these first stable continental nuclei.
Tiny continents starting to form.
Tiny, yeah. There's even a hypothesized early supercontinent called Valbura, though these land masses were significantly smaller than what we know today.
And the atmosphere, still nasty.
Oh yes, it remained anoxic, utterly devoid of free oxygen. Instead of the air we breathe, picture a dense, choking mix of gases perpetually belched from volcanoes. Methane, CO2, ammonia.
Not pleasant.
Not at all. Any oxygen produced by early microbes was immediately consumed by chemical reactions, forming those distinctive banded iron formations in the oceans.
Ah, the BIFs, essentially rust layers, right?
That's exactly what they are. Massive rust deposits on the ocean floor. By the late Archean, extensive greenstone granite belts formed, and that's where we find significant gold and other mineral deposits today.
So these incredibly important mineral deposits we rely on are tied directly to these early anoxic conditions. That's fascinating.
It is. The planet's early chemistry laid the groundwork for resources billions of years later.
But this is also the period where we finally find incontrovertible evidence of life. What was that aha moment for scientists? What were these early life forms like?
Well, the aha moment comes with the widespread appearance of prokaryotic microbes. So bacteria and archaea, the fossils date back to around 3.5 to 3.7 billion years ago. These were the pioneers.
Simple cells, no nucleus.
Exactly. And the true stars of the Archean are the stromatolites.
Ah, yes, those layered structures.
Mm-hmm. Layered mounds built by colonies of photosynthetic cyanobacteria. They became incredibly common by the late Archean. You can still find modern ones forming today in a few places, like Shark Bay in Australia.
Amazing. And they were doing something crucial, weren't they? Photosynthesis.
They were. These amazing microbes were the first to evolve oxygenic photosynthesis, releasing oxygen as a waste product, effectively laying the groundwork for planetary transformation.
So they started making oxygen.
Yes, but it's crucial to remember that this oxygen initially reacted with the vast amounts of dissolved iron in the oceans.
Making those BIFs we talked about?
Precisely. Forming those rust-red banded iron rock layers. It wasn't accumulating in the atmosphere yet, not in any significant way.
Okay. So Archean life was exclusively microbial, marine, unicellular, and anaerobic. Didn't need oxygen.
Correct, anaerobic. In fact, for most of them, oxygen was toxic, like a poison.
So these tiny organisms are essentially producing the very air we breathe today, but the planet is still utterly inhospitable to it. That's an incredible paradox.
It really is.
Yeah.
Almost as if they're laying the groundwork for a future they can't yet inhabit themselves.
What's the tipping point then? What happens as we leave the Archean and all that oxygen finally begins to accumulate?
That's the perfect way to put it. By the end of the Archean, around 2.7 to 2.5 billion years ago, the cyanobacteria were churning out oxygen at an accelerating rate. The oceans were starting to get saturated, the iron sinks filling up. And as larger continental masses like Kenorland were assembling, the conditions were right for that next great shift for our planet, the moment oxygen finally broke free of the oceans and started filling the atmosphere.
Which brings us to the Proterozoic eon, the earlier life eon, spanning a massive 2 billion years from 2.5 billion to 541 million years ago.
Wow, that's the longest eon in Earth history.
It is, by far. Almost half of Earth's entire history is in the Proterozoic.
And it's where we see critical steps in both atmospheric and biological evolution, leading us closer to the complex life we see today. Let's dive into its first major phase, the Paleoproterozoic era. Right. The Paleoproterozoic, from 2.5 to 1.6 billion years ago, began with the Great Oxidation Event, or GOE, a truly dramatic turning point around 2.4 to 2.3 billion years ago.
The GOE. So oxygen finally hits the atmosphere.
In a big way. This wasn't just a gradual rise, it was a fundamental shift. It oxidized minerals on land, changed ocean chemistry.
And you mentioned it was catastrophic for some life.
Absolutely. For the anaerobic life that dominated the Archean, this rising oxygen was toxic. It likely caused a massive extinction event for them. But it also opened up entirely new metabolic pathways, like aerobic respiration, which is much more efficient. New opportunities arose.
A double-edged sword.
Exactly. And what's particularly fascinating is that the GOE also triggered Earth's first known ice age, the Huronian glaciations, around 2.4 to 2.2 billion years ago.
An ice age caused by oxygen. How does that work?
Well, the prevailing theory is that the new atmospheric oxygen reacted with methane, which was a potent greenhouse gas back then, probably much more abundant than today. Oxygen essentially destroyed the methane, stripping it from the atmosphere and causing a dramatic global cooling. Possibly the first snowball Earth event, though that's debated.
Incredible, and continents were still moving around.
Oh yes, supercontinents like Columbia, also known as Nuna, assembled by about 1.8 billion years ago. Big land masses were forming.
And biologically, anything new besides dealing with oxygen?
A huge step. This is when we see the first eukaryote cells, with a nucleus and other complex internal structures, the mitochondria, for example, appearing in the fossil record, around 2.0 to 1.8 billion years ago.
So the ancestors of plants, animals, fungi.
Exactly. Fossils like Crapton spiralis, a coiled ribbon-like fossil, and maybe the Francevillian biota, though their interpretation is still debated, hint at this early eukaryotic life.
Now, after that initial burst of oxygen and some dramatic climate shifts, we hit the Mesoproterozoic era from 1.6 to 1.0 billion years ago. This period is famously, or perhaps infamously, sometimes called the boring billion.
Yeah, the boring billion.
It almost sounds like a geological version of watching paint dry. But was it really that uneventful, or were important things brewing beneath the surface?
That's a great question. It earned that nickname because, compared to the dramatic upheavals before and after, Earth's surface conditions and maybe the pace of evolution appeared to change relatively slowly. Oxygen levels might have plateaued, climate was maybe more stable for a while.
Okay, so maybe a less dramatic change.
Less dramatic, obvious change, perhaps. But calling it truly boring would be a disservice, especially for the continents and for life. This was a time of steady continental growth, leading to the assembly of Rodinia.
Another supercontinent.
Massive new supercontinent, yeah, around 1.2 to 1.0 billion years ago. Its formation and later breakup would have major climate implications down the line.
And biologically, anything happening with those new eukaryotes?
Oh, definitely. It was anything but boring for eukaryotes. They diversified significantly in the oceans. We see the first multicellular algae, like red and green algae, appearing around 1.2 billion years ago. Clear evidence of multicellularity.
Multicellular life, that's a big step.
Huge. And perhaps the most exciting discovery from this era is Bangiomorpha.
Gomorpha.
It's a 1.2 billion-year-old fossil. It's a bit like modern red algae, and it shows differentiated cells that strongly suggest it's the earliest known sexually reproducing organism.
Wow, sexual reproduction that far back.
The evidence points that way. So eukaryotes were actively experimenting with more complex life cycles, even though life was still pretty much limited to the oceans. It was a quiet revolution, maybe, but setting the stage for what was to come. Not so boring, after all.
Definitely not boring. Setting the stage. And then we enter the Neoproterozoic era from 1.0 billion to 541 million years ago, a period of, you said, radical transformations that truly sets the stage for everything that came after, including us.
Absolutely. The Neoproterozoic kicks off with the Tonian period, from 1.0 billion to 720 million years ago. This saw Rodinia begin its slow process of rifting apart.
The supercontinent starts breaking up.
Exactly. And this fracturing created new ocean basins and shallow marine habitats, which fundamentally altered ocean currents and nutrient cycling. This could have boosted biological productivity, maybe increased oxygen again, and potentially set the stage for some dramatic climate events.
More climate drama.
Oh, yeah. Then came the Cryogenian period, from 720 to 635 million years ago, famous for the snowball Earth glaciations.
Snowball Earth. So the whole planet froze over.
Well, that's the hypothesis. During the Sturtian and Merino ice ages, evidence suggests glaciers spread all the way, or very nearly all the way, to the equator. Imagine a world almost entirely covered in ice for millions of years.
That sounds absolutely devastating for life. How did anything survive?
It would have been incredibly harsh. Life likely pushed to the brink, surviving in refuges, maybe areas of open water near volcanoes called polynya, or around hydrothermal vents, or even within the ice itself.
Wow. Clinging on.
Clinging on. And interestingly, hints of early sponge-like animals, the first potential animal fossils, are found from rocks around this time, suggesting primitive animals were evolving even during or maybe immediately after these extreme events. Sponges are pretty resilient.
So, life clung on through a planetary deep freeze, only to emerge into the Ediacaran period from 635 to 541 million years ago. This truly marks the prelude to the explosion of complex life, right?
Exactly. The Ediacaran is fascinating, as the planet thawed, possibly due to massive volcanic CO2 buildup under the ice.
The greenhouse effect kicks back in.
Right. Oxygen levels seem to have risen significantly again, maybe another major oxygenation event. And around 575 million years ago, the enigmatic Ediacaran biota appeared.
These are the first big fossils, right? Not just microbes.
The earliest known macroscopic multicellular organisms, yeah. Many were soft-bodied and look utterly alien to our modern eyes. Think of forms like Dickinsonia.
The quilted mattress thing?
Huh. Yeah, sort of. A flat, ribbed oval. It was debated for ages what it was, but recently they found cholesterol molecules, animal fat, basically in its fossils, confirming it as an animal.
Amazing detective work.
It really is. Other forms include frond-shaped creatures like Trineodiscus that look a bit like sea pens but aren't related.
Hmm.
They were unique, likely feeding by absorbing nutrients or grazing on microbial mats, very different from later animals.
So weird, wonderful creatures.
Definitely. And just before the very end of the Ediacaran, we see the first trace fossils, simple worm burrows, indicating active movement by animals with, muscles.
Animals moving around, burrowing.
hmm And even the first known animal with a mineralized skeleton, Clodina, which created tiny stacked cone-shaped tubes, a first attempt at shells or armor.
So complexity is really ramping up.
It is. Though this period ends with a minor mass extinction, with most of these strange Ediacaran forms vanishing, clearing the stage for something truly remarkable just around the corner.
And that leads us to the Phanerozoic Eon, from 541 million years ago to the present. The name literally means visible life, and you can see why.
That's right, abundant fossils.
This is the current eon, and it's where animal and plant fossils truly explode into the rock record, marking a completely new chapter. We're also going to highlight 5 major mass extinctions that reset the course of life within this eon. Let's begin with the Paleozoic era, from 541 to 252 million years ago, a time when life began its momentous and precarious transition onto land.
The Paleozoic opened with the Cambrian period, from 541 to 485 million years ago, famous for the Cambrian explosion.
The Big Bang of animal evolution.
In a way, yes. It wasn't instantaneous, it happened over millions of years, but compared to the billions before, it was rapid. It's an evolutionary burst where most major animal groups, the phyla with hard parts, appeared relatively suddenly in the fossil record.
Hard parts being shells, skeletons.
Exactly. Things that fossilize well. Trilobites, those segmented arthropods, were wildly successful and are iconic index fossils of this period. You find them everywhere in Cambrian rocks.
The stars of the Cambrian.
Definitely. You also had formidable predators, like Anomalocaris, a large swimming creature with grasping arms and a circular mouth.
Looks like something from science fiction.
It really does. And unique organisms from sites like the Burgess Shale in Canada, which preserved soft-bodied creatures too. Things like the bizarre, spiky hallucigenia and the five-eyed opabenia, and maybe Picaya, which might be an early chordate, a distant relative of ours.
Incredible preservation.
Phenomenal. By this time, marine ecosystems were complex with established food webs, active predation. Things were getting intense underwater.
There's still nothing much on land.
Not really. Perhaps only microbial mats, maybe some primitive fungi clinging to damp land surfaces near the water. The continents were still largely barren rock.
Then came the Ordovician period from 485 to 444 million years ago, which saw what's called the Great Ordovician Biodiversification Event. So even more diversity.
Yeah, after the initial Cambrian explosion established the body plans, the Ordovician saw a massive increase in the number of species and the complexity of marine ecosystems. An explosion in marine invertebrate diversity, brachiopods, bryozoans, corals forming the first large reefs, and cephalopods.
Like relatives of squid and octopus.
Exactly, including giant straight-shelled forms like Orthoceras that could be meters long. The seas were teeming.
And vertebrates. Any sign of our ancestors.
Yes, this is when we see the emergence of the first jawless fish, the ostracoderms, armored, bottom-dwelling creatures, truly the dawn of vertebrates.
Dish. Finally.
But what's particularly pivotal here, maybe even more important in the long run, is that the first primitive non-vascular land plants, maybe similar to modern liverworts, appeared around 470 million years ago.
Plants start to colonize land.
The very first pioneers, beginning the gradual greening of the continents, creating soils, changing landscapes forever, laying the groundwork for future forests and land animals.
But this period ends badly, right? An extinction.
It does. The first of the big 5 mass extinctions, the Endordovician mass extinction around 445 million years ago. It was the second largest extinction event in Earth's history, wiping out about 85% of species, especially marine life.
What caused it?
It seems linked to a dramatic, short-lived glaciation centered over the South Pole, which was then occupied by the supercontinent Gondwana. This caused sea levels to fall drastically, destroying shallow marine habitats, followed by warming and sea level rise. A double whammy.
Wow. Climate change strikes early.
Indeed, a recurring theme in Earth's history.
After that cataclysm, the Silurian period, from 444 to 419 million years ago, saw life rebound and make truly significant strides onto land.
So the Silurian was a time of recovery and innovation, especially on land. This period marked the first definitive terrestrial ecosystems. Imagine tiny pioneer plants like Cooksonia.
What did it look like?
Very simple, just little branching green stems, maybe 10 centimeters tall, with spore capsules at the tips. But crucially, it was one of the earliest known vascular plants, meaning it had internal tissues to transport water.
Plumbing, allowing plants to get bigger and move away from water.
Exactly. Around 425 million years ago, these plants were finally getting a foothold on damp soil. And with plants covering the land, animals soon followed.
Animals on land, what kind?
Arthropods initially.
Yeah.
The fossil millipede Pneumodesmus pneumani, discovered in Scotland and dating to around 428 million years ago, is recognized as the oldest known air-breathing animal. It had spiracles, breathing holes.
A millipede, our first confirmed land animal.
It's a small but monumental step, yeah, showing that a basic terrestrial food web plants, decomposers, maybe early predators, was already in place. In the oceans, coral reefs made a strong comeback after the extinction, and jawed fishes diversified significantly.
Jawed fish, that's another big step for vertebrates.
Huge nothostoms. This sets the stage for almost all future vertebrate evolution, including us.
Next up, the Devonian period, from 419 to 359 million years ago. It's often called the Age of Fishes.
And for good reason. Jawed fishes exploded in diversity. You had the heavily armored placoderms, including giants like Dunkleosteus.
That terrifying one with the bony slicing jaws.
That's the one, a top predator reaching maybe 6 meters or more. Early sharks also proliferated, alongside lobe-finned fishes and ray-finned fishes, the ancestors of most modern fish.
But it wasn't just about fish, right? Also the Age of Forests.
Exactly. It could just as easily be called the Age of Forests because this is when the first true trees and extensive woody forests appeared on land. Species like Archaeopteris.
Not a fern, despite the name.
Confusingly, no. It was actually a tree-like plant, maybe related to conifers, that grew up to 30 meters tall. It had a proper trunk, branches, leaves. These first forests dramatically transformed landscapes, created shaded environments, stabilized soils with deep roots for the first time.
Changing the whole planet's surface.
Fundamentally. But for me, this is where it gets truly exciting for our own evolutionary story.
Yeah.
A crucial step in vertebrate evolution happened then.
Tetrapods.
The first tetrapods, four-limbed vertebrates, emerging from lobe-finned fish ancestors, like Tiktaalik, found in Arctic Canada around 375 million years ago.
Tiktaalik the fishapod.
Exactly. A phenomenal transitional form. It had fish features like fins with fin rays, scales, gills, but also tetrapod traits like a flattened skull with eyes on top, a mobile neck, and crucially, robust forelimbs with wrist bones inside those fins. It could likely prop itself up in shallow water, maybe even make short ventures onto land.
A snapshot of evolution in action. That moment of leaving the water.
Precisely. The moment life started to really walk onto land. However, like the Ordovician, this period also ended badly. The late Devonian mass extinction.
Another one of the big five.
Yep. It occurred over several million years, maybe in pulses, leading to the loss of about 75% of species. It hit marine life, especially tropical reef builders, the hardest. Those massive Devonian reefs just collapsed.
What caused this one? More ice.
The causes are still debated, possibly multiple factors. Widespread ocean anoxia, lack of oxygen seems key. Global cooling might have played a role. Intriguingly, some scientists suggest the spread of those new forests might be partly to blame.
The forest caused an extinction.
Well, the deep roots would have increased weathering of rocks, washing huge amounts of nutrients into the oceans. This could have caused massive algal blooms, which then died, decayed, and used up all the oxygen, creating those anoxic dead zones. An early example of life profoundly impacting the global environment, perhaps with negative consequences for itself.
Wow, an unintended consequence of greening the planet.
Possibly. It's still an active area of research.
That brings us to the Carboniferous period, from 359 to 299 million years ago, famously named coal-bearing.
Yes, from carbile for coal and fair to bear. Because the vast swampy forests of this period formed the massive coal deposits we mine and use for energy today. Tree ferns, scale trees like lepidodendron up to 40 meters tall, huge coastal swamps.
And something weird was happening with the atmosphere, right?
Extraordinarily high oxygen levels, reaching perhaps 30 to 35% compared to our modern 21%.
35% oxygen, why so high?
All that prolific plant growth in the swamps was pumping out oxygen via photosynthesis. And because much of the dead plant matter got buried in swamps and turned into coal before it could fully decay and consume oxygen, the levels just built up in the air.
And this had noticeable effect.
Oh, yes. What's truly fascinating is that this oxygen surplus is directly linked to the gigantism seen in terrestrial arthropods, insects, and their relatives.
Giant bugs.
Exactly. Their respiratory system, based on tubes called tracheae, is thought to be more efficient in high oxygen conditions, allowing them to grow much larger. Imagine dragonflies like Meganura with 70-centimeter wingspans,
Like a seagull.
pretty much. Or human-sized millipedes like Arthropleura scuttling through these ancient forests. Amphibians were also large and diverse.
A world of giants. And what about other land vertebrates?
Another monumental game-changer, the appearance of the first amniote vertebrates around 315 million years ago.
Amniotes. What does that mean?
Amniotes are vertebrates whose embryos are protected by several membranes, including the amnion. This group includes reptiles, birds, and mammals. The key innovation was the amniotic egg.
The egg that could survive on land?
Precisely. A self-contained pod with a protective shell preventing desiccation. This freed vertebrates from the need for water to reproduce, unlike amphibians, which still mostly lay eggs in water.
A huge evolutionary leap.
Crucial. It allowed vertebrates to truly colonize drier terrestrial environments. The earliest known example is Hylonomus, a small lizard-like reptile found fossilized inside fossilized tree stumps in Nova Scotia.
So reptiles are now on the scene. What about continents?
The supercontinent Pangaea was actively forming throughout the Carboniferous as continents collided. This reduced coastlines, and combined with some climate change, eventually led to a drawing trend near the end of the period, causing the Carboniferous rainforest collapse. The vast swamps started to shrink.
And that leads us directly into the Permian period. From 299 to 252 million years ago, the final and, well, most dramatic period of the Paleozoic era.
Dramatic is certainly the word for the end of it.
During the Permian, Pangaea was fully assembled, right? One giant landmass.
Yes, stretching nearly from pole to pole. This created extreme climates, vast arid deserts in the interior, maybe monsoonal conditions along the coasts. Very different from the Carboniferous swamps.
And who was dominating the land now? Reptiles.
Reptiles diversified, but the dominant large land animals were actually the synapsids.
Synapsids. Those are the mammal-like reptiles.
That's the old term, yeah. They're actually the lineage that includes mammals. So, more accurately, they're early relatives on our side of the family tree, distinct from true reptiles. Early Permian forms included things like the famous sail-backed Dimetrodon.
With the big fin on its back, often mistaken for a dinosaur.
Very often, but lived long before the dinosaurs. Later in the Permian, more advanced synapsids, called therapsids, became dominant. Things like the tusked Dicynodon or the fearsome predator Gorgonops. These therapsids show features becoming more mammal-like, different types of teeth, maybe even fur and some level of warm-bloodedness. They are the group that would eventually give rise to true mammals in the next era, the Triassic.
So our distant ancestors were thriving, but the Permian's defining event and one of the most terrifying in Earth's history was the Great Dying.
The end Permian mass extinction. Yeah, the big one. Around 252 million years ago?
The largest mass extinction event our planet has ever seen.
By far. Wiping out an estimated 96% of marine species. 96%. And 70% of terrestrial vertebrate species. Life came incredibly close to being completely extinguished.
Unimaginable. What could possibly cause such devastation?
The evidence strongly points to massive, prolonged volcanic eruptions in the Siberian Traps, a vast region in modern-day Siberia. We're talking possibly millions of cubic kilometers of lava erupted over maybe 1 million years or less.
Siberian traps of volcanism.
Yes. These eruptions unleashed immense amounts of greenhouse gases like CO2 and methane, leading to runaway global warming. They also released sulfur dioxide, causing acid rain. The warming oceans likely became severely anoxic, depleted of oxygen, and possibly acidified, too.
So a perfect storm of environmental catastrophes, warming, acid rain, ocean suffocation.
Exactly. A cascade of effects that fundamentally reset life's trajectory. All trilobites, those ancient arthropods that had thrived since the Cambrian, vanished completely. Many other successful Paleozoic groups were wiped out or severely reduced. It was as if the planet hit a giant reset button.
Clearing the decks for new forms of life to emerge in the next era.
Precisely. It cleared the decks for the Mesozoic.
And that brings us into the Mesozoic era, from 252 to 66 million years ago, universally known as the Age of Reptiles. Or, maybe more accurately, the Age of Archosaurs, including dinosaurs.
Yeah, dinosaurs definitely steal the show eventually.
Yeah.
This is a time when they ruled the land, colossal marine reptiles patrolled the seas, and pterosaurs soared through the skies.
So, after the Great Dying, what did the Triassic period look like from 252 to 201 million years ago? Was it a slow, grim recovery or something else?
It was a biological reset, but maybe surprisingly rapid in some ways. The immediate aftermath, the early Triassic, was called the dead zone by some, but life did recover. It was dominated by disaster attacks, a few hardy survivors. Most famously, a sturdy pig-sized synapsid called Lystrosaurus. Its fossils are found everywhere in early Triassic rocks globally. It was one of the few large land animals that survived the Permian extinction in large numbers.
The ultimate survivor.
For a while, yes. But as the period progressed and ecosystems started rebuilding, a new group, the archosaurs, which includes crocodilian relatives, pterosaurs, and dinosaurs, began their ascent. They outcompeted the surviving synapsids for dominance.
The archosaurs take over, and the first dinosaurs appear.
Yes, the first true dinosaurs emerged around 230 million years ago in the mid-Triassic. Initially, they were mostly small bipedal animals, living alongside larger crocodilian relatives. Things like Eoraptor and Herrerasaurus from South America, or Coelophysis from North America later on. They weren't dominant yet.
Not the giants we usually think of.
Not yet. That comes later. The Triassic also witnessed the first pterosaurs, those incredible flying reptiles, taking to the skies. And importantly, the first true mammals evolved from those surviving therapsid synapsids.
Mammals arrive. What were they like?
Tiny shrew-like, probably nocturnal creatures like Megazostrodon, living in the shadows, literally.
Keeping a low profile while the reptiles battled it out.
Pretty much. In the seas, after the devastation of the Permian extinction, new marine reptiles evolved to fill the empty niches. Streamlined, dolphin-like ichthyosaurs and the first long-necked plesiosaurs appeared.
So life is diversifying again, on land, sea, and air. But the Triassic ends with another extinction.
It does. The end Triassic mass extinction around 201 million years ago. Another one of the big five.
What caused this one? More volcanoes.
It seems so. This time linked to massive volcanism associated with the breakup of Pangaea, the Central Atlantic Magmatic Province, or KMP. Huge lava flows as the Atlantic Ocean started to open up.
History repeats itself.
It seems to have. This event, while smaller than the Permian extinction, was still devastating, particularly for large amphibians, many synapsids, and many non-dinosaur archosaurs. Crucially, it cleared the way for dinosaurs to truly take over and dominate in the next period.
And dominate they did. The Jurassic period, from 201 to 145 million years ago. This is the one everyone knows, right? Dinosaurs reign supreme.
This is when they really hit their stride, yes. Dinosaurs became the dominant terrestrial vertebrates. You see the evolution of the colossal, long-necked sauropods like Brachiosaurus and Diplodocus, the largest land animals ever.
The true giants.
Absolutely. And large, fearsome theropod predators like Allosaurus hunting them. Plus, diverse herbivorous groups like the plated Stegosaurus, classic Jurassic fauna, especially known from places like the Morrison Formation in the western U.S.
But for me, the most iconic origin in the Jurassic is that of birds.
Ah, yes, Archaeopteryx, a pivotal fossil, found in Germany, dating to about 150 million years ago.
The first bird. Or a feathered dinosaur.
That's the beauty of it, it's both. It's a perfect example of a transitional form. It possesses feathers arranged on wings much like a modern bird. But it also retains very clear dinosaurian traits. Teeth in its beak, a long bony tail, and claws on its fingers.
So it provides striking, undeniable evidence of evolution, directly linking dinosaurs, specifically small feathered theropods, to modern birds.
Exactly. It's one of the most famous fossils for demonstrating evolutionary transitions.
What was happening in the oceans?
Marine reptiles were arguably at their peak. Speedy ichthyosaurs continued, and gigantic pliosaurs, short-necked relatives of plesiosaurs like Liopleurodon, became top predators. And ammonites, those coiled cephalopods, were incredibly abundant and diverse, their fossil shells making them key index fossils for dating Jurassic rocks.
A very dynamic period.
Extremely. Pangaea was really starting to break apart now, creating new seas and coastlines.
That brings us to the Cretaceous period. From 145 to 66 million years ago, the grand finale of the Mesozoic.
The longest period of the Mesozoic, and a time of continued change. Continents were drifting rapidly towards their modern positions. Gondwana broke up, the Atlantic Ocean widened.
And the climate? Still warm?
Very warm, generally a greenhouse climate, possibly even warmer than the Jurassic. Sea levels were exceptionally high, flooding large parts of the continents, creating vast, shallow inland seas, like the Western Interior Seaway that split North America in two.
A water world, almost? And the dinosaurs, still ruling.
Oh, yes. Late Cretaceous dinosaurs diversified immensely. You had the hugely successful duck-billed hadrosaurs, incredible horned ceratopsians like Triceratops, armored ankylosaurs, and of course the ultimate apex predator, Tyrannosaurus rex.
T-Rex, the king.
The tyrant king, yes. True birds, having evolved from their dinosaur ancestors, continued to radiate and diversify, though they still lived alongside the pterosaurs.
Flying reptiles still around.
Very much so, and they reached their peak size in the Cretaceous. Giants like Quetzalcoatlus, found in Texas, had a wingspan estimated at over 10 meters, maybe 11 meters, like a small airplane.
Unbelievable size, but something truly revolutionary happened with plants in the Cretaceous, didn't it?
Yes, arguably the biggest change in terrestrial ecosystems since plants first colonized land, the emergence and rapid global spread of flowering plants, the angiosperms.
Flowers, finally.
Flowers, fruits, broad leaves. They appeared maybe around 130, 120 million years ago and quickly diversified, outcompeting the previously dominant ferns, cycads, and conifers in many environments. This co-evolved beautifully with pollinating insects like bees and butterflies, creating a whole new set of ecological interactions that define our world today.
A green revolution.
Absolutely. In the oceans, modern teleus fish, the vast majority of fish alive today, diversified rapidly, and new apex marine reptiles. The mosasaurs, giant swimming lizards related to modern monitors, appeared and became dominant predators. The high sea levels also led to the deposition of vast amounts of chalk from the skeletons of tiny plankton, like the White Cliffs of Dover.
Chalk seas. But the Cretaceous and the entire Mesozoic ends with a bang.
The most famous mass extinction event, the KPG extinction, Cretaceous Paleogene extinction, around 66 million years ago.
That's the one linked to the asteroid impact, right? The end of the dinosaurs.
Exactly right. It's widely, almost universally, attributed to a large asteroid estimated at about 10 kilometers wide that struck the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, creating the massive Chicxulub crater, which is mostly buried now.
What would an impact like that do?
Catastrophic global effects, immense earthquakes, continent-spanning tsunamis, ejecta raining back down causing global wildfires, and then critically, a prolonged impact winter from massive amounts of dust and sulfate aerosols blasted into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight, causing temperatures to plummet and photosynthesis to shut down on land and in the oceans.
Total devastation. Was it just the asteroid?
Well, there was also massive ongoing volcanism. At the same time, the Deccan Traps in India were erupting floods of lava. Some scientists think this volcanism might have pre-stressed ecosystems, making them more vulnerable to the asteroid's final blow, or perhaps contributed directly to the climate change and extinctions. It was likely a combination of factors, but the impact seems to be the main trigger.
The result.
Catastrophic loss of life. About 75% of all species on Earth perished. This included all non-avian dinosaurs.
So all dinosaurs except the ancestors of birds?
Correct, birds survived. But all the other dinosaurs, T-Rex, Triceratops, the sauropods, gone. Pterosaurs, gone. Large marine reptiles like mosasaurs and plesiosaurs, gone. Ammonites, gone. Many plankton groups were decimated.
How do we know it was an impact? What's the evidence?
Several key lines. A thin layer of clay found globally, right at the KPG boundary, is incredibly rich in iridium, an element rare on Earth's surface but common in asteroids.
The smoking gun layer.
Exactly. There's also shocked quartz grains, tiny glass spherules, tektites, formed from melted rock, all signs of a massive impact. The Chicxulub crater itself matches the age perfectly. Plus, fossil evidence like a massive die-off of plankton and a fern spike in the pollen record just after the boundary, suggesting ferns were the first plants to recover in the devastated landscapes. And fascinatingly, there's the Tanis site in North Dakota.
What's special about Tanis?
It seems to preserve a snapshot of the immediate aftermath, maybe within hours of the impact, thousands of kilometers away. Fossils of fish piled up in a river deposit, killed by the impact's seismic waves, triggering a massive surge wave, or a SH, and found with tiny impact spherules lodged in their gills. It's an incredible window into the first moments of the Cenozoic.
Wow, a truly world-shattering event.
It fundamentally reset the stage for life on Earth once more.
And with the dinosaurs gone, the stage was definitively set for the Cenozoic era from 66 million years ago to the present, what we now call the Age of Mammals.
That's the popular name, yes. And generally, it's been a time defined by mammal diversification and overall a long-term cooling climate trend after the Mesozoic greenhouse.
Let's break down the Cenozoic. First, the Paleogene period from 66 to 23 million years ago. What happened right after the extinction?
It was a time of remarkable recovery and rapid innovation, especially for mammals. Previously small, mostly nocturnal creatures living in the shadow of the dinosaurs, they diversified explosively to fill the newly vacant ecological niches. This is called the Paleocene mammal radiation.
So mammals took their chance.
They absolutely did. Within just 10 million years after the impact, they evolved into an amazing array of forms: early primates, rodents, hoofed animals, carnivores, filling roles previously held by dinosaurs, from tiny shrew-like creatures to large herbivores like the hippo-like Gryphodon.
And perhaps one of the most astonishing evolutionary stories happened then. Whales.
Yes, the evolution of whales from land-dwelling mammals is one of the best documented macroevolutionary transitions we have. It starts in the early Eocene epoch of the Paleogene, with four-legged, hoofed land animals like Pakicetus living near water in South Asia.
Land whales.
Essentially, yes. Then you see a clear sequence of fossils showing adaptations to aquatic life. Ambulocetus, walking whale, Cuchicetus, Rhocetus with limbs becoming flippers, nostrils migrating back towards the top of the head, developing powerful tails, culminating in fully aquatic forms like the huge serpentine Basilosaurus by the late Eocene. Incredible story.
Just amazing. What about birds? They survived the extinction.
Birds also experienced a massive radiation. With the non-avian dinosaurs and pterosaurs gone, they diversified rapidly too, including some large, fearsome flightless birds like Gastornis, sometimes called Diatryma, in the northern hemisphere, apex predators in the early Cenozoic forests, and the ancestors of modern bird groups like early penguins appeared.
And the climate, still warm.
Initially, yes. The early Eocene saw extreme warmth, possibly the warmest period in the entire Cenozoic during the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, or PTM, around 56 million years ago. Temperatures spiked globally. Even tropical forests grew near the poles.
A hothouse world.
For a time. But then a long-term cooling trend began. A major step occurred around 34 million years ago at the Eocene-Oligocene boundary. A dramatic cooling event led to the formation of the first permanent Antarctic ice sheets. This marked a fundamental shift from the greenhouse conditions of the Mesozoic and early Cenozoic to the icehouse climate that has largely characterized the planet since, with ice caps at the poles.
So the big chill begins.
The long-term big chill, yes.
This cooling trend truly continued into the Neogene period, from 23 to 2.58 million years ago. What were the main consequences?
A huge one was the continued expansion of grasslands globally. As the climate became cooler and drier in many regions, forests retreated and open grassland spread. This had a massive impact on animal evolution.
Leading to grazing animals.
Exactly. The evolution of iconic grazing mammals. Horses, for example, which started small and forest-dwelling in the Eocene, evolved larger bodies, longer legs for running in open terrain, and crucially, high-crowned teeth, hypsodonti, perfectly adapted for grinding down the tough, abrasive, silica-rich grasses. Many other groups like rhinos, camels, antelope relatives also adapted to this new grassland world.
And primates. Our lineage.
The Neogene, particularly the Miocene epoch, saw the peak diversity of the ape lineage across Africa, Europe, and Asia. Many different forms existed, including the largest known ape ever, Gigantopithecus, which lived in Asia later in the Neogene and maybe into the Pleistocene, a truly enormous primate.
Wow. But what's really crucial here for us?
It's in the late Miocene, around 7 to 6 million years ago in Africa, that the fossil record suggests the human line, the hominins, diverged from the lineage leading to chimpanzees, our closest living relatives. Fossils like Sahelanthropus chidensis from Chad, around 7 million years old, show a mix of ape-like and hominin-like features, including potentially walking upright. It's the very beginning of our distinct evolutionary journey.
The start of the human story. What was happening in the oceans?
Whales continued to flourish and diversify into modern groups, like baleen whales and toothed whales. And patrolling those oceans was the gigantic megalodon shark.
The monster shark.
An apex predator of incredible size, maybe up to 18 meters long, feeding on whales. It thrived during the Miocene and Pliocene epochs, thankfully extinct now.
Yes, thankfully. And any major geological events?
A fascinating event happened in the Pliocene, around 3 million years ago, the formation of the Isthmus of Panama, finally connecting North and South America.
Which had been separate for a long time.
For tens of millions of years. This land bridge allowed the Great American Biotic Interchange, a massive two-way migration of animal life between the continents. Things like North American predators, cats, dogs, bears moved south, while some South American mammals like ground sloths, armadillos, and opossums moved north. It dramatically reshaped the faunas of both continents.
And this is also the time of Lucy.
Yes, the Pliocene is the time of the Australopithecines in Africa. including Australopithecus afarensis, the species of the famous Lucy fossil from Ethiopia, dated to about 3.2 million years ago.
What's so important about Lucy and her kind?
They clearly demonstrate habitual bipedalism, walking upright on two legs, as their primary mode of locomotion. Laetoli footprints in Tanzania, also around 3.6 million years old, show this too. But their brain size was still relatively small, much closer to a chimpanzee's than modern humans.
So walking upright came first.
It seems so. Bipedalism came well before the major brain expansion that characterizes our own genus, Homo, a critical insight into human evolution.
Finally, we arrive at the Quaternary period, from 2.58 million years ago to the present. This is technically our current period.
It is. It encompasses the Pleistocene and Holocene epochs. The Pleistocene, often called the Ice Age, runs from 2.58 million years ago up to just 11,700 years ago.
The Ice Age, dominated by glaciers.
Yes, characterized by repeated cycles of glacial advance and retreat. At their peak, colossal ice sheets, kilometers thick, covered huge parts of North America, Europe, and Asia. These glaciations caused dramatic sea level shifts, falling by 100 meters or more during glacial peaks, exposing land bridges like the one between Siberia and Alaska, then rising again during warmer interglacial periods. These cycles profoundly shaped landscapes, carving valleys, creating lakes, and influencing life.
And this was the era of the megafauna.
Exactly, the iconic Ice Age megafauna. Woolly mammoths and mastodons, formidable saber-toothed cats like Smilodon, giant ground sloths, woolly rhinos, cave bears. Creatures adapted to these fluctuating, often cold environments. They thrived across the globe.
But also, crucially, this is when our own genus, Homo, really evolves and spreads.
Yes, the Pleistocene is the key epoch for human evolution. Early Homo, like Homo habilis and Homo erectus, emerged in Africa at the start of the period. Homo erectus was the first hominin to migrate out of Africa, spreading across Asia and possibly Europe. Later, other species like Neanderthals evolved in Europe and Asia, and Denisovans in Asia. And most importantly, our own species, Homo sapiens, evolved in Africa likely around 300,000 to 200,000 years ago.
And then we spread globally.
Yes, Homo sapiens began spreading out of Africa maybe around 100,000 to 60,000 years ago, eventually colonizing every continent except Antarctica, encountering and sometimes interbreeding with other archaic humans like Neanderthals along the way.
And our arrival often coincides with something else.
The decline and extinction of the megafauna. Towards the end of the Pleistocene, many of those giant mammals disappeared, particularly in the Americas and Australia. This leads to an ongoing debate. Was it primarily due to rapid climate change at the end of the last glacial period, or was it overkill from newly arrived sophisticated human hunters?
The blame game. Climate versus humans.
It was likely a complex combination of both pressures, varying by region. But humans certainly seem to have played a significant role in many of these extinctions.
Which brings us right up to the Holocene epoch, from 11,700 years ago to the present, our current sliver of time.
Exactly. The Holocene is the current interglacial period, the relatively warm and stable climate phase we've been in since the last major ice sheets retreated. It might seem long to us, but in geological terms, it's just the latest brief warm spell in the ongoing Ice Age cycles.
But it's the epoch that encompasses all of recorded human history.
Everything. The development of agriculture around 10,000 years ago, the rise of villages, cities, civilizations, writing, empires, industry, all crammed into this geologically brief window of relative climate stability.
And it's here that we also encounter the concept of the Anthropocene, a new epoch.
Potentially, yes. Many scientists argue that human impact on Earth systems has become so significant, so globally pervasive, that it warrants defining a new geological epoch, the Anthropocene, the age of humans.
When would it start?
That's debated. Some suggest the dawn of agriculture, others the Industrial Revolution. A popular proposal from the Anthropocene Working Group points to the mid-20th century, marked by the great acceleration in population, industry, resource use, and crucially, the global fallout from above-ground nuclear bomb testing, which left a unique radioactive signature in sediments worldwide, a clear geological marker.
A sign that we've fundamentally changed the planet.
Unquestionably, we are now the dominant geological force. And this leads directly to concerns about the sixth mass extinction.
Are we in one now?
Many scientists believe so. Extinction rates today, driven by human activities like habitat destruction, climate change, pollution, and overexploitation, are estimated to be hundreds or even thousands of times higher than the natural background rate seen in the fossil record. It's a stark reminder that even after billions of years of Earth's history, the story is still being written, and we are now, for better or worse, the dominant authors of the current chapter.
What an absolutely breathtaking, truly epic journey we've taken. Just incredible. From the hellish, molten Hadean, where rock itself was liquid,
Yeah, unimaginable
to the
beginnings.
microbial takeovers of the Archean and Proterozoic, where single-celled organisms literally engineered a planetary atmospheric transformation.
Tiny architects of our world.
Then the explosion of visible life in the Paleozoic as creatures ventured onto land, the magnificent, sometimes terrifying reign of reptiles and dinosaurs in the Mesozoic.
An era of
And
giants.
finally, the age of mammals, and ultimately humans in the Cenozoic, leading right up to this moment, grappling with the Anthropocene. Each chapter built upon the last, often driven by cataclysmic events, leading to the incredibly complex, diverse, and frankly fragile world we inhabit today.
Mhm.
Understanding this deep history, this immense timescale, it really does help us grasp our place in the planet's ongoing dynamic story, doesn't it?
It really does. It provides crucial perspective. It's truly awe-inspiring how studying this vast geological record with its strata, its fossils, its chemical signatures allows us to piece together such a grand, intricate story of our planet's past, even with all the gaps and mysteries remaining.
Yeah.
And this deep dive into billions of years of change, of extinction and recovery, of planetary transformation, it really raises an important question, I think. If we consider the immense scale of geological time and Earth's history of constant transformation, what does this inspire you, the listener, to think about for Earth's ongoing story?
A good question.
What responsibility do we bear now as the dominant species capable of altering global systems so profoundly? And looking ahead, maybe thousands or millions of years from now, what might the next chapter look like in the vast geological future, given humanity's accelerating impact on its systems?
Mhm.
How will our actions today be read in the rocks of tomorrow?